Maximilian Giel. I'm a Switzerland-based outdoor and sports photographer and filmmaker. And today I'm here in my office and I want to talk about this little bad boy here, the DJI AVATA, and how it performs out in the mountains. I think that's something that might be pretty interesting for many people. That's the reason why I'm talking in English today. Just like first, why did I buy the AVATA? As you can see, I also have already the DJI FPV. So the first thing is, you can see it here, is the size. This was probably the main reason, because I like to fly with the FPV from DJI, but it's super hard to transport, especially if you're mostly quite fast out there in the mountains with a trail running backpack, and it gives you hard times to fit this in. And also with the old goggles which I have here, which are super junky compared to this one here. So that's why this was probably the main reason why I decided to go for the AVATA kit. And also the weight is super interesting. Well, this is way below 500 grams. This one is below 500 grams, which is super important. Here in Switzerland, we have quite a lot of airports, military airports, quite everywhere around, also where I live. And with these, you're allowed to fly. Also, not directly on the airport, but you don't have to respect this 5-kilometer range around the airport that much here in Switzerland. That's just here in Switzerland, so I don't know how it works in your country. But for me, this is a super important thing. For sure, if you fly these drones near to an airport, you should know what you do. You should look for other aircraft or whatever, but I don't think I need to talk about that. I think if you fly drones, you will have your flying license. And so I think you should know what's allowed and what's not allowed. So that's not the topic of this video. That's why I won't dive too deep into this. So the new goggles, as I mentioned before, are also super important thing for me. They're super small and really nice from the transportation thing. What's new is this little cover inside here, which is super cool, and also the possibility to adjust your dioptrine value inside the goggles, which will result, in my personal case, in less motion sickness, which I had a little bit more often with this goggles, but it's anyway just a matter of training and how much you fly with this drone. That's something nice. And last but not least, they did a little bit of a tweak with the new battery. The battery is basically the same, so you can use the old one if you have already the DJI FPV. But the new cable and the new battery have this small little tick here, where you can clip in the cable so it won't disconnect if you put it in your pocket, what I personally usually do. So this is really really cool, and it's a nice feature in the new pack. As you probably have noticed, the Fly More bundle, or the bundle, how is it called? The Pro View combo comes just with this controller, with the motion controller that I basically never used, to be honest. I can't say anything about it. I mean, it lays in the hand good, and I think the build quality is pretty fine. But if you really want to fly FPV, so you will need to buy this controller. I already had it from the FPV, obviously. Otherwise, you will need to buy it for about 120 euros, something like that. So if you really want to fly FPV, there's no other way than flying with this controller. This is kind of a downside, but I personally, I get the point from DJI, because this drone is really something that will help people to get into FPV and this kind of thing. I mean, you can fly in sport mode with this controller, and you will have probably quite a cool experience. You will be able to fly really close to obstacles, what was a little bit more difficult with the DJI Mini 3 maybe, or the Mavic 3 Pro, whatever drone you've been casually using before. But yeah, if you really want to have the experience and fly FPV, then you definitely will need this controller. So where did I use this drone so far? So I am having it now since a little bit more than 1 month. I've been flying quite regularly, did maybe 15 to 20 flights all in all. And I used it on elevation up to 3,000 meters. I had wind speeds up to 40 kilometers an hour with gusts. And also in cold conditions, in snowy conditions with below zero temperatures. So that's something that I've been using it. Generally, the drone works super good in this kind of environment. Didn't have any problems with kind of battery drain because of cold conditions or whatever, so this wasn't an issue. The thing is, or my personal thing, what I want to tell you, you really need to be careful if there's a lot of wind, because this drone is really super light. So if there's wind, you will feel it, and you also will feel it in terms of how fast you drain your batteries. And yeah, so I'm really careful usually if I fly it. I flew it just once with 40k of wind because it was a job, but usually I just fly it if there's not too much wind, means not more than 30 kilometers an hour, which is the legal basis what you're allowed to fly. Yeah, really be careful with wind speeds with this drone, because otherwise you might get a little bit in trouble. And yeah, I think that's something that you really should have in your mind. So the pros I already kind of mentioned. The size is super cool. I mean, it's super small. I just transport it in a waterproof bag, usually, which comes in super handy. So I can fit it in every trail running backpack. The weight is super cool. It's super small. It's super light. And for sure, the flight time is pretty good. I personally find it a little bit better than the FPV. Get 10 to 15 minutes per battery, which is okay. And I already mentioned that I really like the new goggles. That's something what I would put on the pro side. And if we come down to the contra side, to the cons, there are some things to mention. The first thing what you really need to know is this kind of way where you have to approach the SD card. So this is really something I hate about this drone, because it's situated here. So I will show you here in close-up in the propellers, and it's also always really bad if you have to change the SD card. Maybe after flight you switch out the SD cards to not lose any footage in case you crash. Also, if you use the 20 gigabytes internal storage and you need to plug in a USB cable, the best way probably would be to dismount the propellers. But come on, I mean, this doesn't make sense to dismount the propeller to access the USB-C port. So yeah, I think that's something they could have done better. But yeah, it's a small drone, and yeah, there are always some things that are a little bit difficult. And the next thing, which is not super cool, is the charging time of the battery. Takes for me forever. I haven't used it, or I haven't tried it to put a 60 watts charger on it. I just used the normal DJI charger from the DJI Air 2S. And it takes really long. So if you have all 3 batteries in the Fly More combo and you recharge them, then this takes 4 or 5 hours, something like that, maybe even more. don't know it exactly, but it takes forever. So if you have really a job where you have multiple flights and you want to use it commercially, so you will need, in my opinion, at least 4 or 5 batteries to be covered, because it takes forever to recharge the batteries. The last but not least downside is for sure like the connection here in Europe. So as soon as you like go over a hill or something like that and you lose like the direct visual contact with the drone, the connection will die, and this can result in crashing. I actually crashed it 2 times so far. Once I did exactly what I mentioned before or right now. The other time was just like,
found it.
As always, I actually was a little bit over ambitious, didn't roll pretty close to the ground, and then just like crashed in the field. The drone itself didn't get any damage, so it's really, really robust and versatile. So yeah, the time I crashed when I lost the connection, it just like flew in a tree. I got it back, so it wasn't a big issue. But yeah, I think that's like the most biggest downsides I have to mention after using it for more than 1 month. Then if you really want to get great footage and you get the motion blur, you will need to use filters here on this drone. This video is like supported by Freewell, which produce filters for these drones. Also the ND filters. So they sent me the set. They didn't tell me anything about what I should tell you about it. But so far I'm really happy with them. The build quality is super cool. I like the casing. It just like clips like magnetic here. It's really cool. And in this set there is an ND8 to ND64 filter as far as I know. And I like the colors. Didn't have any like reddish or something color disposition on this while using them, and I highly can recommend them. They just like clip in there pretty easy and clip out, as they're pretty small, because the drone is pretty small. The probability is pretty high that you will touch the lens when you mount them or dismount them, so you will need to clean them. So make sure that you bring a cloth where you just can clean the filter to get the best possible video quality. So I think that's something I really would recommend to buy when you go for the Avata or for any other drone. If you really want to get great footage, then just buy ND filters, because yeah, you want to have professional footage, go for them. So last but not least, the comparison in terms of power and all this kind of thing with the FPV. I mean, this drone here is way heavier and way more powerful, flies up to 150 kilometers an hour, which this gets like maybe 120 kilometers per hour, which is still pretty fast. But like if you do the dives or stuff like that, or you will need to get up pretty fast, you will notice a difference between this drone and this drone. I mean, this one is so much more powerful and it's also way heavier. So if you do the dive, it's really, it's a different feeling, and it's also something you need to keep in mind when you just like end the dive, because like this is heavy, so don't be too late, otherwise you can just dig it out of the ground. Where this is super really cool. What I would recommend, I would change like a little bit the settings in terms of the reaction of the drone. That's what I definitely would recommend. So then it's a really nice drone, and it's not too tricky to fly. But before you start using this outside and start flying FPV drones, this is not a Mavic. Remember this. So you will need to go for practicing before you go. You can use either the DJI app with the goggles, which is pretty good to get the feeling and just like get used to flying with the goggles and not to get the motion sickness. But you also can use your computer and fly with liftoff, what I've been using quite a lot. I spent like 30 hours in liftoff before I flew outside, and I highly recommend that, because otherwise you probably won't have this bad boy for too long. So keep this in mind. If you want to start flying FPV, you need to practice. Yeah, so last but not least, who should buy this drone? What's the verdict of this video? I mean, if you want to get some cool footage for social media or for all other jobs, and you want to get into FPV, I think that's your choice. I mean, that's super cool. It's small. You always can bring it, and it's fun to fly. I like the camera so far. Didn't need to mount a GoPro, where I had to mount a GoPro mostly on the FPV drone here. So this is really, really cool. But if you just like want to fly normal drones and just like are willing to really work with this and earn money with this, and you're not willing to really invest time to train getting better in FPV drone, then I highly recommend to go maybe for the DJI Mini 3 Pro, which will be the better option for you. You also can go like in this FPV mode on the Mini 3 Pro. So this gives you a slightly different feeling. But if you really want to get into FPV and want a good package, don't want to have like all this tweaking at home and building your drone itself, this is your thing. So yeah, I think that's it from my side. I will show you now some footage I got with this drone in the last weeks. And yeah, I hope you liked it and this helped you a little bit to know a little bit more about the drone. And yeah, if you have any questions, just leave them down below. If you like the video, feel free to subscribe to this channel. It's totally free. I will give you insights in my jobs, in my mountaineering adventures. Also, this kind of product videos you will see here more often on this channel. And yeah, would be glad to see you again. And yeah, that's it from my side. Have a good one and see you in the next video.